Yo, what is going on, Xbox and YouTube? Now today we are here to stress test the hell out of Roller Coaster Tycoon World by basically making a park in which you can never leave. So once you ride one of these rides, you will never be able to leave the park again. Just showing you guys my settings that we are running the game on so that way you know what I'm trying to benchmark. But as you guys can see, as we look around the map, the frame rate is constantly jumping all over the place. Most of the time for no reason whatsoever, and a lot of it doesn't make any sense at all. But we seem to be hovering around 60 frames. So let's reload the map and see how long the map takes to load. And yes, we did add one roller coaster, so that way we can somewhat test that as well. And so that way the peeps aren't completely bored and they have at least one ride that they can ride. So we are appropriately naming this the park you can never leave. Hashtag fuck the world. So let's open the park and let's let people start rolling in here. So right here we have about 76 people, and we have our first group of victims coming off of the Ferris wheel there. So they can never leave the park. So as you guys can see, the way I have the ride set up, it's basically the exits do not allow you to ever get back to the main entrance of the park. So we're just going to continuously stack people into this park until the game no longer wants to work right. So now we're at about 229 people, and I decided this wasn't going fast enough, so I wanted to add one more ride just to speed things up, and we made it a ride that is very popular, so that way people will stack up into this ride. And of course we're going to make it free, so that way everybody has no reason not to ride it. And if you guys have noticed as well, we are not putting any janitors in at all, so the puke, the piss, the shit, all the garbage is just going to stack up into my park until we have a nice slip and slide style pathway going. As you guys can tell, the mascots are working great within Roller Coaster Tycoon World. I love it. I love the fact that I can have up to 10 in my park. And as you can see, the puke and the piss and everything else is starting to stack up within the park, and oh my god, there comes the glitched in peeps in which they just decided to render. So we're just continuing. We're at about 1,000 people right now, and our frame rate is hovering around 40 to 45 frames. And it constantly jumps and spikes down, up. It doesn't really matter. It's very inconsistent. But as you can see, as you go up and you're not looking at any parts of the park, well, things get a little better when the entire park isn't being rendered. So we're at about 1,100 people within the park, and the frame rate is still hovering between 30 and 45 frames. And those mascots are still doing a great job, and looks like some puke is really starting to stack up in front of the zipper. This guy has tons of people he's going to have to try to make happy, and we only hover at about 18 frames within that little stall there. As you guys can see, riding roller coasters is the most god-awful experience, with having even just a little amount of people, and yes, 2,000 people is very little. And as you can see, we have not even hit 2,000 people yet. We've came close, and the rapture has already started within the game. All of my rides have already made it to heaven, and it looks like all of my peeps are on the way. So, yeah, they just had enough of my park, and looks like they just heading up to heaven there. But anyway, let's reload the map. Okay, now we're back into the map. Thankfully, I have a backup save. So we are at about 1,882 people, and we're sitting at, wow, we're sitting at 25, and we're jumping from 25 to 11, just trying to put this ride in. So I decided to actually take this ride out later on because the frame rate was just suffering so badly. Alright, so let's reload the map after deleting that ride and see how long it takes for this map to load with about 2,000 people within the park. No, it's not frozen, guys. It's loading. It's doing its thing. Okay guys, it looks like the map has finally loaded up and we are hovering around 30 frames just in this view, not moving around whatsoever. So that is not too good. And in this view, we are hovering around 19 to 23 frames, and then moving out, we hit a solid 55 for about a second. As you guys can see, we are sitting at 2,058 people in the park, and you already can almost not even tell the difference between people. So it's already getting pretty packed in here and quite disgusting, seeing as though we have no janitors. So here is a shot of the front of the roller coaster, and as you guys can tell, without having any janitors, the puke and the piss and the garbage really does stack up quite nicely. If you look closely, it even has a kind of a sheen coming off of it when the sun hits it in just the right angle. Okay guys, so we are at 3,002 people and our frame rate is hovering between 20 and 10 frames, which is absolutely god awful, considering these are stationary shots of the game as well. So trying to pan around in this game with this many people within your park is virtually impossible, and it makes the game very unplayable. So now we are at 4,140 people within the park, and our frame rate is sitting at 9 frames, and that is absolutely horrible, but it does look quite funny. And as you can see, here is a shot of just the people within the game, and with just people and the background in the frame, we are still only sitting at 27 frames. So this freaking park just looks absolutely hilarious. Not to mention that the game is unplayable, but this is just one of the funniest things I've ever seen within Roller Coaster Tycoon. And I actually used to do this within the older games, and it ran just fine within the older games. But considering this is the new Roller Coaster Tycoon and it is being developed by somebody completely different, I figured I would just show you guys how this map runs when you hit the max amount of people. So now we are sitting at 4,980 people, and this is the most amount of people in which you can actually fit into the park. The game will not spawn any more people out once you hit somewhere around this number. But even still, this is a hell of a lot of people to have within any park in the game. But with that being said, the game should be able to run smoothly with this amount of people in the park, mainly because they expect you to be able to build parks that are big enough to accommodate this amount of people. So if the game cannot run correctly with the full amount of peeps on the map, well, that is a very big problem. So I just figured I would show you guys that, but here we go, deleting all of the rides and everything besides the people in the park. Now this is basically just showing you that regardless of anything else being on the map, the frame rate consistently stays shitty as hell. So now we have nothing left in the park but the people themselves, and as you guys can see, the frame rate is sitting at 4 to 3 to 7 to 8 frames. It's just basically all over the place, but overall is absolutely god awful. So now that we have all of these people successfully trapped within our park, what we're going to do next is basically build a pathway for all of them to leave, and let's see if our frame rate goes up any or at all. So as all of my wonderfully happy guests start to leave out of the park, our frame rate still hovers at about 8 to 7 frames a second. Absolutely unplayable and just absolutely hilarious as well. So as all of my happy guests leave the park, let's leave you to a little bit of a montage while they clear out, and we will see you guys in a few minutes. So I basically did this little stress test to show the developers of Roller Coaster Tycoon where the flaws are with the Peeps, and the very fact that you can't have up to 5,000 people within your park without hitting a frame rate of 8. So there is something definitely wrong with the optimization for the Peeps within the park, because I should be getting a better frame rate than 8 frames even when they are just people within the park and no rides at all. So I really do hope this video helps and somewhat shows some of the flaws within Roller Coaster Tycoon World. And if I've opened your guys' perspective on Roller Coaster Tycoon World, and if you thought this was funny as hell, please remember to like, subscribe, and comment. And I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.